All right. So what we're going to discuss today is using a thermal imaging camera, or a TIC, to measure a person's temperature. In this age of COVID-19 and the pandemic and limited resources and trying to overcome with what you got, it's not unusual for fire departments to have thermal imaging cameras. And as far as the temperature, taking it, a few factors I think come into play. Biggest factor is going to be distance, because the area that the thermal imager measures on the screen, if you look at this image, basically is that little green square. And you can kind of see the ear diagram through here, and you can see with that area that you want to be somewhere in this region right here. And I'll describe that region in a moment. But depending on how much of that ear, how many pixels it's reading that temperature off of, is going to be a factor of how accurate it is. Okay, and that's going to change with distance. So, best area to measure on the ear, to me, that seems most precise, is from the crus of helix to the carrera of antihelix, and down to, so forming a box, down to the concha cava and across to the tragus. So in that box right there, pretty much, is going to be the area that's probably going to be most effective for measuring temperature. Now, that being said, I think probably the best, and this could be different between adult, child, shape of ear, etc., but probably anywhere from the crest of helix to the carrera of antihelix, so somewhere in that area, more than likely. Okay. Now, the factors I think that have the most significant impact on the actual correctness of the reading, accuracy, is going to be two things: primarily distance, maybe somewhat child and adult. So I'm going to frame it in distance and then reference child and adult in both cases. So if you got a person that has a temperature of 98 degrees Fahrenheit and you're roughly 6 feet away, then it's going to be proportionately temperature-wise, for the child, probably about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Should be, in the realm of 98 degrees, which is about normal temperature. And then for the adult, it's probably going to be somewhere between, a little bit of a range from 92 degrees, roughly 93 degrees, roughly. Okay. And that's a distance that, as far as PPE, you'd probably be okay. I mean, they talk about the 6 foot social distancing precautions, so you're still at about 6 foot, and PPE less prominent especially if you're out in the open. But get closer than that, then we need to start thinking about PPE. So at 4 foot, still not touching the patient, still got a little bit of distance, but wearing PPE, good idea. For the child, you're looking at about 93 to 94 degree Fahrenheit. For the adult, you're probably looking at about a 96 to 97 degree Fahrenheit reading. So it's a little more accurate on the adult. And then the most accurate readings are anywhere from 3 to 6 inches. So about the length of a regular iPhone, or maybe an iPhone Plus, somewhere in that range. You're going to get the most precise readings. And for the child, it was roughly 98 degrees Fahrenheit. For the adult, it was 98 degrees Fahrenheit plus or minus a degree. So there could be a little tiny bit of fluctuation in there, but it should be pretty close. So, those factors I think are the most significant. And we already talked about the area to measure, which I think will help tremendously. But other factors that could have a little bit of an impact potentially could be things like external temperatures. Was somebody wearing headphones before you took the temperature? To where their ears were kind of insulated and held in some of the heat. Those kind of factors. So just kind of keep that in mind. But the other factor to consider too is what temperature should we be concerned? And most of the stuff that I've seen references 101 degree temperature is really, you've crossed the threshold into I should be concerned. So for 101 degree temperature, that means those readings that I gave you could potentially go up 2 to 3 degrees on those before you have to really get concerned about them. But above 3 degrees, then above 2 degrees, I would say, a little bit of a safety factor. Above 2 degrees, you're approaching the, I've crossed the line. I should be concerned about this patient being a risk, for me as a first responder. So just go through the temperature table one more time. 98 degrees Fahrenheit, roughly 6 feet away. Child, 90 degrees Fahrenheit is equivalent. For adult, 92 to 93, equivalent to 98 degree temperature. 4 foot, 93 to 94 for the child, 96 to 97 for the adult. And at 3 to 6 inches, 98 degrees for the child, 98 degrees roughly, plus or minus 1 for the adult. And those all should roughly be equivalent. Obviously, the camera has the potential to, depending on how many pixels it's measuring, to have an impact on that number too. So as far as the camera that I used, I basically used a FLIR thermal imager. Model number is a FLIR KX series. FLIR KX series, model number 73701. And I would think probably most FLIR K models probably have roughly the same kind of temperature range. Obviously you'd want to confirm it with your camera. And other thermal imagers, depending on the the pixels that are involved in the measurement, I'm sure have the potential to cause different results. So don't get me wrong there. It's obviously a factor. But the best way to tell is just try it out and confirm it. Pick a victim and see if the numbers pan out. So if you got questions, post them. And if you have any suggestions, that's obviously appreciated too.